Well, good morning and welcome to the Church Office podcast. My name is Gavin Smith and it's a joy to welcome you today to this church administration podcast. We love talking about everything that happens behind the scenes. And I've got a good friend of mine, Becky Thomas, on the podcast today. Becky, welcome. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks. It's great to be back. It's
great to be here. And we were just chatting earlier about all the things that we've got going on. We often have a little catch up, Becky and I, and two church administrators who, caring for each other. And we were just sharing each other's task lists. And I said, we should do this on the podcast because as we chat and as other people email in about the podcast, they're like, how do you get everything done? How do I have knowledge in finance as well as buildings, as well as law, as well as cleaning programs and all sorts of things. So they often describe our jobs, don't they, as spinning lots of plates, and it's a common one, isn't it? But that is how we live, isn't it, Becky?
Absolutely. I think it's probably one of the things that I've said most often when people kind of say, what's your job? And you tell them your title, which really tells you absolutely nothing at all. Gav and I have quite different titles, but I think actually do very similar jobs. Then like, how do you try and summarize what do you actually do? When you start explaining and somebody says, oh, so you're in HR. Well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And then you say a bit more, and it's like, building management too. Yeah, that too. And it's there's nothing quite like church administration as a job, is there? I'm not sure there's much that's very comparable.
It is so true. And I had a couple of emails and a couple of people have been listening into the podcast, and thank you so much for sending in like your questions and your observations and stuff. I mean, I had one email that came in this week was like saying, Gav, we haven't had a podcast for like 3 weeks. What's happened? Are you okay? I was like, well, I'm fine. We've just been so busy, and I guess it's like this is what's going on, and we both do kind of jobs as well as other things. So please forgive me for not having this kind of 2 weekly bang on podcast. So what are some of the things that are making you busy at the minute? If you've not in church administration and you might be listening as a pastor, this is going to be like a little reflection as to what goes on in our world, and I'll share some things that I'm working through, and there is this expectation of us to know everything about everything. So what have you got on your list that you're working on at the minute?
So quite a big part of my job is kind of compliance related stuff. And we've got a trustees meeting coming up in 10 days time. So quite a lot of my workload's been related to that recently. So that's lots of looking at kind of policies that we wrote a few years ago, kind of going, okay, we wrote this policy a couple of years ago. Does it still, one of my big phrases is we need to do what we say and say what we do. So we need good policies. And if the policy isn't the same as what we do in practice, we have to say, well, is our practice wrong or is our policy wrong? Lots of prep for trustees meeting has been a big part of my, making sure that we've got all the information together, that trustees can see what's been going on. They're busy people, aren't they? They're people who serve as our trustees, as our elders, as our deacons, as our PCCs, whatever we call them. They're very often some of the busiest people you'll meet. So trying to put together information for them in a kind of concise and helpful way, recognizing that they won't find it easy to wade through 57 pages of documents and policies, is definitely a big part of what I've been doing the last couple of weeks.
And that is a big part of the role, isn't it? Preparing documents, getting stuff sorted for trustees. I think we've done that. We've kind of gone through some review on policy and safeguarding stuff, and you do have to keep on doing that, don't you? And regularly updating that, and people forget. So I think I sent our safeguarding policy out to our trustees, and it's like it's been a year, and you just forget, don't you, what's in there, and you've got to keep going back to it and reminding people of why we're doing it. And you're right, are our practices still working? Are we still doing our DBS checks? Are we still hitting those points? And little reviews on those things. I've got at the minute on my list a new website and a new app for the church. So, Gav, can you sort this out? We need a new website. And
So add web designer to your list of skills then.
yeah, so I got no idea, but I put the church office together, and they said, "Well, Gav, you've done this website, so you should be able to do our church one." I was like, "Yeah, but I paid someone, good to do it." And so so I'm in the process of kind of trying to serve our church, and thinking, right, okay, how do I put something together that's going to work well for them? And we've gone down the app road and seen some churches using apps as not just a way to communicate, but more of a discipleship app as well.
So how are you using your app? Because we don't have one, so I'm interested in the concept.
Okay. Well, we're using a company called Subsplash, and they've got a kind of product that you can buy into. Again, everything's like monthly subscriptions now. It's not like you pay 3,000 for a website and this for an app, But it's all subscription based now, and so you change something on the app, it changes on the website. And so the website is more of a kind of visitor-based, outside the church kind of, here we are kind of thing. And the app then is a lot more steered into to the church. So we've been able to kind of put on all our sermons or teaching series. We've been able to kind of like put them into topics and make them easily accessible through the app. So you're getting people on the phones. I think the big thing that's going to make a huge difference is the notifications. So we send out emails, we send out texts, we send out different things saying, right, there's a new podcast, or this week's message is up for those that are on kids' work, and you can access it here. And we do all that all the time, where one change on the app and the website will push out a notification for people to go straight to their app and access the podcast, access the message. It's got messaging functionality, so you can have groups that are set up in the app to message each other, whether it be prayer things or small groups, or those who are involved in the allotment project, right? We're all getting together this time, and you can do it, and it'll notify you on the app again. So super excited about
it'd be really interesting to hear how that goes.
So I think it's available for people to download outside the church. So when it's live, I'll put it on the website, and I hope to do kind of an interview with Subsplash, because I think it'd be interesting for other churches to look at. So it could be a really useful tool. And I think what's great is the app, it almost kind of comes with the website. So the kind of this actually doing it together is great. And I think I don't know for other church administrators, but I get a bit fed up of like posting something on Facebook and Instagram and all these places. And I know there are tools that you can just do it in one place, but to have, right, we're going to center everything that, information that people need is going to be on this app, and you can access it easily on your phone.
But the more different places we have to like update bits of information, the more likely it is that we get errors, isn't it? It's one bit doesn't get updated or whatever. So being able to change it all in one place sounds fab.
It's great. And I think we probably spent, I don't know, 7 to 8, maybe more on the website 5 years ago. And they do seem to run out of date quite quickly, and this is a kind of constantly an area of like, you go back to the management team saying, right, we need another $5,000 for a new website, and they're like, what, you only had that a few years ago, and it's like, but it's moved on and it's changed, and
it moves on so fast, doesn't it?
It's so hard, and it gets dated so quickly, and you're like, this website really doesn't represent the church and the family and the life, and so we need to kind of address it. And
the way people access websites has changed massively. You look at our data for our website now, virtually nobody looks at it on a laptop or on a desktop computer. It's all on tablets and phones, and that has an impact. And
so it's great. And as part of this, you get a TV app, which I'm quite excited about. So if someone's got like, a fancy TV and you can download apps, you can download the church app, and you could be sat in your lounge watching Sunday's message, midweek, as a home group or as a group or small group. Where I'm like, this is so cool. So so there's some very cool little kind of quirky bits to it that I'm like super excited about. So we're going to try and launch that in September. And so I've kind of got that bit going on. But the other kind of online thing that we're doing in a minute, which I'm glad there are some other people in our office who know what they're doing, is we've got this new Moodle site, like a training site.
Okay.
And we're trying to direct people there for safeguarding training, young people's training, who's who, whatever we've got. How do you access curriculum? Training things that we put on in an evening. how do we do that online? And we've signed up to this Moodle site, and we've been trying to build that together. And you can like the safeguarding training is great because you can give like a video, do a little talk, and then they have to complete a test online, and it's like a
Oh
pass or
wow.
fail test, and so there's some really good things. So we've been setting that up. So I'm like,
And can you set those up kind of very customized so
yeah.
you can, because sometimes online training's a good thing and sometimes it can be really dreadful, can't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I did the food hygiene certificate the other day online, and it was hard work. It was like 2 hours of videos, questions, tests, and it was lengthy, and maybe it is, it is needed. But yeah, how do we make something accessible to the church? And I was just thinking, there's always that period of time, isn't there? I think this is part of the reason where you've got a new recruit for kids work, say, they're in the process of a DBS and applications and stuff. Wouldn't it be great to go, right, here's, your heart is to serve in this area. Yeah, we've got to do these steps first before you start. Would you jump on this training module and do this, this, and this, and this? And it tracks it all. It emails the office when they've completed it. So we've got this kind of, yeah, we can see what's happening. We can see that people have done it. And it's one of those ones where you can't just click through to the end, but you do have to watch it. And I'm sure it is frustrating for a user, but actually, to bring them out for an evening, 3 times or once every term to do this stuff, we can be gathering together as a team and praying together more than just going through the training. So yeah, and you can do it on your phone, and we've linked it all up through the app as well. And I'm like, this is great, but also busy, so I'm learning loads of stuff, which is cool. And I think that is one of the other joys of it, isn't it? You're like, yeah, I've been asked to do this training module site. I think I know nothing about it. Speak to a couple of school teachers, and they're like, oh yeah, we use this all the time. Great, right, let's start building a team, start learning about this stuff, and get it going. So
I wonder if there's some people listening to this podcast who are going, that's great, Gav, but we've got loads of people who aren't online in our church.
yeah,
it's definitely something that we've talked a bit about at different points. How do we make the most of some of this new technology without excluding people?
Yeah, absolutely right. I think it is a challenge, and I think one of the things that we've chatted to our older members is they were saying they're quite good with using apps, and I think going along the app thing is a good way that you click in, everything is in that kind of one place,
Yeah, absolutely.
So the thought of, right, have I got the right web address, and typing it in and getting that and following a link and logging in and all of that, it's like, oh, you lose people, don't you, in that process, who are not
absolutely
techie and struggle with that, or you may not even get them to the website in the first place because they're just reluctant to do it. But yeah, I think we would still offer the training in person, I think. And there are if you had an older group of people who were available in the day, then like we'll put something on for them, like an afternoon tea and do it. But it is, it's good to be mindful of everyone, isn't it? The demographic in the church and who can.
I think the other thing we've done, which is a pretty small thing, is just try and say to people, look, if you just need help getting your app set up, or your a link saved in an easy place for you to find, then feel free to bring your phone, bring your tablet. We'll help you get your app downloaded, or the website saved in your favorites, and show you how to find your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a small thing, but for some people it's enough. It is the kind of setup and getting going that they can't do. And once they're on it, it's definitely something we found, even with something like QR codes.
Yes.
We're using QR codes. Some of our older folk were saying, oh, can't work this out at all. Now they're the most avid. Every time they want publicity for something, can we have a QR code on it?
It's great. Those are great, aren't they? Great things. Yeah, we used QR codes a lot during lockdown when we had people come to the building for their vaccination stuff, and we had these up on posters, and people were connecting in either to Alpha or videos, and what could we do that could just, and it is so true. We want to kind of keep up with everyone, but we also want to bring the church with us, don't we, with some of this new technology, and that can be a challenge. All right, so we've got website, apps, trustees, governance, compliance. Give me something else. I know we're going to cover everything here. What else have you got on the task list?
So we're in the process of working towards quite a big building project.
Ah, yes.
So yeah, probably the building management stuff is my least favorite bit
Yeah.
of the different things that I do. So it's not my happy place. Um, looking at drawings and
Yeah.
trying to work out whether they've put enough plug sockets on and
Yeah.
all of those kind of things. So that, yeah. And then obviously the other part of having the building work done is that, so there's the work itself and what do we want and what are we trying to achieve and how does this serve our gospel work here?
Yeah.
There's also the builders are saying we can't use our main hall for 10 weeks.
Oh, joy. Okay.
Now what?
Now we have to do
So
something. That's quite a major thing. Yeah.
yeah, the logistics of how does church
Relocating.
happen when we don't
Yeah.
have our big room?
Yeah.
Our big room that we fill 3 times on a Sunday is not going to be available for 10
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. That is scary. Yeah.
So
Just think about all
that's
the
definitely
logistics of
a
setup
big
and
item on my to-do
yeah.
list.
Yeah. That's just another item, but it's like, yeah,
Yep.
got a huge list. Yeah, building maintenance is our time for it now. So I've got our kind of like, building manager come in saying, over the summer, I want to do this, this, and this, and this. I need this money and I want to close down this room and do this. And so we're now going into that season where I'm getting presented with all these ideas and I have to kind of start to go, right, what are we going to do and how are we going to do this? Can we jet wash the outside of the building? Can we put up a play park? And we need a new fence here, and I'd like to paint the whole of the main hall. And you're like, that's going to be a good 2 weeks worth of painting, right? How are we going to make that work? And so, yeah, so buildings are on the list. Yeah. And HR, you said earlier, we're in the middle of doing staff reviews. And I love staff reviews. They're great and really needed. But also, it does a whole work in me thinking, actually, how am I doing as a manager? And so you become quite vulnerable as well in these times because you realize that actually I'm not doing as well as I thought I could do or am doing, so there's things like that. So any HR things for you?
Staff going is always
Yeah.
part of the job. So we have ministry trainees every year. So they're with us for 11 months of the year. So it sort of feels like that we're always either recruiting, inducting, or saying goodbye to those guys.
One of those things, yeah. And then just with that, with like talk about interns and stuff. Yeah, we're doing some of that at the minute. So there's got to be social media posters, content. There's got to be application forms. We need to start thinking about interview process. We need to start thinking about when a student's coming out and starting to think about gap years and internships. And yeah, that's definitely on the list. Yeah. Anything else? What else you got?
What else is on my list?
I'm going to look at my board.
I think there's a perpetual round of logistics stuff. So we're start. I don't know whether I dare say this. We're starting to think about Christmas.
Oh yes, come on! I love a bit of Christmas.
I know you love Christmas, but yeah. So it's that constant kind of planning, trying to be a few steps ahead. So we've had that conversation this week. Christmas Day is a Monday this year. Yeah. So what does that mean for when we do carol services, for when we do the kids services? What other Christmas events do we want to do this year? Yeah,
that's interesting because I had a meeting last week with someone who was saying they want to do a Christmas Day meal for those that are on their own this year. We've done it in the past, and other churches have done it, and it's like no, I really feel called to do this, and you're like, great, let's release you to do this. But yeah, we got to talk about hygiene certificates with menus, transport, how many we need, how many we had previously. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how quickly this comes around. We're already talking about September, launching new curriculum with kids work and implications on that. And I know we've got staff, we're in bigger churches, we've got staff that are doing, part-time roles or volunteering roles in these things. And so we're not on this on our own, but at the same time, they're on our list, aren't they, of things that we have to do. I'm in the middle of writing with a colleague a funding bid for a playground. So we've got through the first stage and we're like on to the next stage. But with that, you've got to have 3 quotes. You've got to have a tender process that you've done and established. The time that takes to do that is nuts. And then you have these random things. Give me a random thing. Well, let me give you my random thing this week. Came through.
Okay.
Email comes through this week. We've got a telephone mast on our property. It's been there probably 25 years or something. Saying it's come to the end of the contract. It's a small income each year for us to have it on site, and they've just gone, well, we're going to reduce it by 10% of whatever it was. So we were getting like 4,000, and now we're going to give you like 400 quid a year to have this thing on site. And you're like, no, what am I doing? And then there's all this law around telephone masts and the government trying to put together schemes to have a serviceable network for everybody. And so actually, as you start to look into the law, and I'm thinking, right, I don't know anything about this, you start reading, you go, you can't actually remove these very easily from your property. And even though they're offering you a tiny amount of money from what it was, 20 years ago, there's not a great deal that you have to do with. So I have to know something about this whole area as well. So it's totally random. I can totally come out of the blue.
Absolutely. You find yourself delving into all kinds of obscure things, don't you? We've got trees with preservation orders on our site. And somebody comes and says, well, the ivy's running really rampant up this tree, so can we chop it all down? And I'm saying, but that tree's got a preservation order on it. So that means that we have to contact the council before we're allowed to do any work on that particular tree. But does that apply? Because it's not the tree we want to do work on. It's the ivy that's growing up the tree that we want to do, and it is so much about very, very random things. And equally, you find yourself doing odd things. The number of times I've had people find me doing slightly odd things, and they say, Becky, is that in your job description? And you say, well, not really. But it's not in anybody else's job description either. And it needs doing. So here I am.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's funny. I was repairing a zip boiler tap thing that came the other day, and we had a quote for it. It was something like £180 for someone to come in and do this. And I was like, I know a plumbing shop. I'm sure they've got these zip taps. I can do this. There's no way I'm going to pay £180. And I'm thinking, everyone's looking, going, why is Gav so motivated for this? To change. He's not even very good at DIY, but it's just you go, do I want to pay that? Or no, actually, I can do that for like 30 quid and I'll do it myself. And you do jump into these kind of random things.
Or something that you find somebody who do it, but they can't do it for 3 weeks. Well, that's no use to me. So I guess I'll do it.
Yeah. And then it's things like updating contracts. Like this week I was updating contracts for fire extinguishers and services on those, and you kind of have these kind of annual agreements or 2-year agreements, and all of those come round, and so the whirlwind, I guess. If you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking, this is my life. I can identify with these guys, and this is how we do live, I think, isn't it? Of kind of keeping everything going, but you've still got to keep all your your payments that you need doing, following all your different procedures for your finance, health and safety, helping people with their risk assessments, helping people with their projects and their planning,
and that's the other thing, isn't it? You could listen to all that and you could go, that's an awful lot of paperwork and doing stuff, but actually a huge part of this job is a people job too. It's probably what I'd tell you surprised me most about the job that I do. Just how much it's a people job. Spending time with people, talking to people, supporting people, with random things and important things, listening to people.
I love
how
that.
we balance that prioritizing of somebody who's come into the church building who just wants a bit of a chat. So versus
true.
Somebody who wants help with writing a risk assessment versus I've got this policy that I've got to review.
And those bits I do love. I love it when someone from the church comes in, they've got a new idea for a ministry, or they just come in and say, I just want to serve in this area. I'm not doing anything. Can you link me up? Can you get going? Oh, I mean, those stuff you love.
Yeah.
And they see it as an interruption. It's like, oh, sorry, I'm interrupting you in the week. And I'm like, no, this is some of the best parts of the job, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as we were praying earlier before, connecting the practical work of ministry to the gospel. And people might be hearing this podcast going, I would hate that job. But I love it. And it's just that there's joy in it. And I think as well as all the task lists that we're doing, what we are doing behind the scenes is enabling gospel ministry to happen. It's enabling people to hear the good news of Jesus. It's taking the gospel out into our communities. I love working with our mercy ministry teams and volunteer groups that are going out there every week, serving people on food banks and CAP. And so my week might have half an hour a week of CAP related questions or meetings or food bank, but I love that diversity. And one of our pastors was saying, I don't know how do you sleep at night? Just trying to remember where you are on this last task, and what you've got to do tomorrow and what you've got to do this week. And there's grace in it, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think, it is on those tough days when you don't know which way's up and stuff's flying at you and you're trying to send stuff out and stuff's coming in. It is remembering why we do what we do that keeps you going.
Yeah.
When otherwise, I think you just go, this is insane.
Yeah.
What am I even doing here? It is remembering that we're doing this to enable the gospel to go out.
Yeah.
Like, that's what keeps me going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think I'd have thrown the towel in a long time ago.
Yeah.
Simply because some days are just loopy.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of something and somebody comes and says, Becky, there's a blocked toilet, and then the phone rings and, everything happens at once. And you go, what am I doing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is random. I'm sure Emma really appreciates the conversations when we get home. It's like, you did that today, and what you were involved in, like, how did you get time to do all that? But there's grace at work, and it's a privilege to serve our churches. And so if you're serving administration or operations behind the scenes, then let me encourage you, know God's pleasure and delight and smile over you as you serve him, and make the connections yourself between the things that you're doing and to the gospel, because that is the thing that brings fresh desire and joy and motivation. There's just this overflowing of the gospel that we want. I want that to be a daily part of my activities and connections. So love that. Now we've benefited from connecting together and praying together even today. It's been an absolute joy. UCAN has a network of people. If you're in the UK listening to this, then there's a UK Church Administrators Network. And I love meeting with other administrators and connecting. Isn't it great? You might be sitting in this podcast listening to this going, these guys get me. And that is some of the beauty, isn't it, of linking up with someone who does your job, who are on the same wavelength and just know what it's like.
Absolutely. I said earlier, there's nothing quite like church administration as a job. Yeah. And so meeting with other people who inhabit this weird and wonderful world of church administration, and get that our days wildly vary, and we jump from fixing toilets to writing policies to doing whatever else we do, is a huge blessing, really.
Yeah.
And very often when we come across those things, when you suddenly realize you need to know about this very obscure thing, there's always somebody else who's done it first.
Yeah.
Because, I had to do that. And that's just hugely helpful.
Yeah, it is. It is great. Yeah, we sent a funding pack to somebody this morning who saying, like, we had a 65,000 for a national lottery grant for a disabled suite, and someone else is going to apply for that, and they were like, can you give us this? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And having a time and a place and space to be able to kind of share what we're doing and our jobs and our tasks and stuff, you do find people who, like you're saying, who've done this before. And I love church administrators' hearts that are brilliant at just sharing information and caring for one another in it. And I think that's a real strength of people who are in operations. We kind of we connect and we share things so freely, and I love that.
I think it's really important, isn't it, that we keep that big
Yeah,
picture view of church.
yeah,
And it isn't about our little corner or our little empire,
yeah,
but actually we are part of the worldwide church,
yeah,
and we can work together
yeah.
for
Absolutely
gospel
right.
good.
Yeah, that kingdom mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is good. Yeah, great. So, want to finish on two promos. I mean, we're talking about sharing information. One of the things that UCAN has been trying to do, which the team and some of the board are involved in, is this kind of benchmarking survey. And I think this is useful, isn't it, for those who are in the UK who are going, how much do you pay somebody in operations? You know, what are the different roles that you have in operations? And I guess what you kind of trying to do on this benchmark survey is to kind of pull together a whole load of data from hundreds of churches
Yeah.
that kind of collate it all and then put it into a format where if you're wondering how much do I pay a receptionist or how much do I pay someone in finance in a church role, then you're going to be able to look at what might be equivalent in different areas. Tell me a little bit about it. You know more than I do on this, don't you?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a fantastic resource. You know, we are lots of local churches spread all over the country. We have connections in different ways for different reasons with some other churches. But the benchmarking survey is just really helpful for getting that big picture of church life, and particularly church administration and organization.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that kind of question of, okay, so we're a church of about 250 members.
Mm-hmm.
Can somebody give me an idea of, well, what level of staffing might we
Yeah.
expect?
Yeah.
You know, for 250 members, how many ministry staff do churches generally have? Would a church of that size have a paid administrator, somebody who's part-time, maybe, you know, to get that kind of sense of
Mm-hmm.
what's normal,
Yeah.
what can we expect, what should we be working towards, thinking about pay.
Yeah.
People ask questions about, well, how much annual leave do you give, what level do you contribute to pensions at,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kind of really practical questions, a lot of it around kind of HR stuff, where in many, I guess, many sectors you'd have kind of standardized,
Yeah.
you know, so in education you've got kind of standard pay scales, and so it's very obvious if
Yeah.
you're appointing a teacher who's got 3 years experience, this is where you
You
put them on the
land.
pay
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
And it's really providing that kind of resource for churches.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where it might feel like a bit of a hassle to go through the questionnaire and fill it out because it's a long list of questions that we want you to answer and participate. But it's one of those things that if you put a little bit of time into, you get a huge amount back, don't you? And I've loved kind of flicking through it and going, oh yeah, okay, that's interesting. An equivalent church, I've got 5 people working on buildings, 2 people working on admin, and you can look at that and say, how does that match up against what we're doing? Do we need to learn anything as we do a review? We've actually got something in front of us to go, okay, I can compare it to this, and it might start conversations and leaders tend to. I've always find it's helped our leaders as we chat to them and say, I think we need another person in this role. You know, how can you justify that? And they like to see a bit of evidence. They like to see a bit of thought and saying,
They
well,
like the data, don't they?
yeah, they do. Yeah, prove it to me. Why do we need this person in this role? And saying, well, actually, here's why, and here's what other churches are doing, and it gives you a little bit more confidence. Say, actually, we're on the right road here,
Yeah.
or we're paying the right amount, or we're giving the right kind of benefits, and we've got the good flexibility and all those kind of things. So it needs people to participate with information to get this back, doesn't it? So
absolutely. And the more people who are able to participate, the better the information is.
That is so true.
Because the data is really helpfully broken down in the report by things like regions and church sizes. And so the more people who contribute, the more we can have confidence in the information.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And this is something you can have done for a long time, and I suspect it might even go back to John. You never know. We'll put the links on the socials and in the information. As you know, if you're watching, then it'll be underneath you on there, and the podcast similarly. So yeah, if you've got time and you think, oh, actually this would be beneficial for me, then would you commit to putting the time in to go and complete it and work through it? And if you think there's ways that we can make it better, information that we could, that's not covered, then feed it back, because this is like joint resources that make it work and make it better for everyone. So dive into that. Finally, Becky, you're well, last time you were on the podcast, you were talking about conferencing, because you are the whiz at conferences. And UCAN are running another one, aren't they, in London? It's a day conference you've been setting up. Give us a bit of info for listeners who can, come along to this.
Yeah, so day conference on the 28th of June, so that's a Wednesday in just a few weeks' time. This conference is one that's particularly aimed at those in kind of more senior admin roles, management roles, in churches, in church offices. As much as anything, it's a great opportunity to get together, as we talked a few minutes ago, with other people who do really similar things and who just get it.
Yeah.
So in many ways, that's probably one of the most exciting things about
it's a highlight.
conference.
Yeah.
It's why we keep doing them, and it's consistently what people tell us they really value about the conferences. But of course, there's great content as well. So this time we're thinking about more with less. Mm-hmm. So thinking about the fact that I think as churches, many of us are increasingly feeling that there's massive need in our communities around us. There are lots and lots of ways in which we could and perhaps should be doing more to serve our local communities. Mm-hmm. But that comes at a time when we've perhaps got less resources than ever. Finances are tight in churches. Cost of living has had big impacts on churches, both in terms of the income that they get, the people's ability to give, but also our costs have gone up too. So we've got less financial resources. That often means we have less paid staffing resources. And that comes on the back of post-pandemic, many of us feeling that we have less volunteers or volunteers who are able to offer less. Many people have reevaluated their kind of volunteering and their serving. And I think many of us are finding it really tough in some areas to encourage people to serve in ministries where we'd love to see work growing. So yeah, we're going to be spending some time thinking about how can we do more with less.
It's a good topic, isn't it? I think it's right. We are being stretched in different ways, and so let's hear it. Let's be encouraged and find out ways that we can do more with less. So check out that conference again. We'll put the link on there and throw that up. But Becky, thank you so much for your time. It's been great just having a chat, and I hope our listeners have enjoyed just what's on our task list at the minute. And if you want to connect with Becky and I on something that you've heard on the podcast, then please do get in contact at info@thechurchoffice.co.uk, and Becky and I would love to relate and interact with you and serve you if we can in any way. So don't worry, the podcast is still going for those who were concerned that it was disappearing. No, we've got a number of different speakers lined up and looking forward to this next season. So thanks for connecting, and please check out the church website. And Becky, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We'll see you again on the pod.
I'm sure you will.
Lovely. Take care,
Great
everyone.
to chat.
Bye-bye.